revenues, and content strategy. We really are, fascinated by this entire streaming world, which has opened up so many new vistas for content creators, for platforms, for consumers, to watch when they want, what they want when they want. We have a fabulous panel ahead to discuss this topic on the importance of analytics as far as the platforms are concerned. Our panelists include Divya Dikshit. I'll go ladies first. I know she'll object to this because she says I'm a women's libber. It's equal opportunity, but I'll still go with Divya first. Divya Dikshit is the Senior VP Revenue and Marketing of All Balaji. Welcome, Divya. Good to see you.
Thank you, Anil, for having me here. It's a pleasure to be part of such an esteemed panel. I look forward to a great debate.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Viratjit Singh, an old friend of ours. He's the Senior VP and Head of Revenue at MX Player. Welcome, Viratjit.
Hi, thank you so much, Anil, for having me here. Super excited to talk about such an interesting topic that's so relevant to all of us today.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming here. Abhirup Datta, the Head AWard Marketing for Z5. Abhirup, are you there? Good morning, good afternoon to you. Hi.
Good afternoon, Anil. Good afternoon, all. Thank you for having me here and look forward to an insightful session.
And finally, we have the ever so lovely Amruta Shankar, the Director Data Analytics from Cinemedia. To flag off this entire session, I'd like to call on Amruta to come and describe about the trends that are taking place in the world as far as content consumption, as far as platforms, analytics are concerned, and how the different platforms are keeping a track of how to serve better advertising to consumers. Over to you, Amrita.
Thanks a lot for the introduction, Anil, and it's going to be a great panel, I'm sure. So what I wanted to do is almost kick it off by talking about the challenges that we today have with data and insights itself. We do collect a lot of data. Across the world, we are seeing that collecting data or getting data doesn't feel like as much of a challenge as it used to be maybe 5 years ago with everyone moving to internet streaming. But where the problem starts to come is everybody has different needs from the data. And I think, we've got a nice panel of different types of roles and motivations. So the product manager wants to understand, is my UI doing the right thing? Are people able to use it and find something? Or are they just saying, I don't know how to use this product to get to the content I want? The marketing director, also in charge of revenue. How do I acquire these customers? How do I make sure these customers stay on my platform and don't leave the moment my one blockbuster series is over? Content rights manager. Am I buying the right content? Am I just buying content because everybody else is buying it? How do I know what is it my customers really want to watch? Ad sales and AWard becoming huge now, knowing how to really understand your audience and segment things. And operations is always a challenge, making sure that with the perfect content, the perfect targeting, and the perfect product, you still need to ensure that network buffering and video player failures don't become the doom of your product. But there is so much of data. How do you really know what is it you need? So what everyone is really looking for is the right actionable insights. And what I'm going to do is look at some of the examples of these insights. So if you take content insights, content remains king, and let's use the right insights to allow it to rule your service. Improve your ROI, know exactly what is the content that everybody wants to watch, where do they want to watch it, on which device, how do they want to watch it? Do they want to binge watch it on a weekend, watch it live with everyone else? What are the challenges about content distribution that the right insights can really inform you? With app insights, what are your customers' journeys to find this content looking like? Do they always use voice search? Do they worry that you don't have voice search and they need to use a fidgety TV remote to type for things? How do you understand the best product UI that really markets your content very visibly? Operational, it's all about the service quality, ensure that you're not stuck with the pain of buffering issues being the reason why people move away from your service. And audience insights. It is so easy now in a world where previously everybody watched, the entire household sat in the living room and watched TV on one screen. You now have the benefit or the luxury of all of those individuals moving away to their own personal screens. How can you use that personalization opportunity with the right insights. And that is what audience insights can really help you understand. And a lot of this is an area that Cinemedia is working on, and that's why we worked with our friends at ITV to run this panel. Who is Cinemedia? We have transformed and continue to transform the way the world is entertained and informed. Our solutions are trusted by over 200 pay TV operators and deployed in 320 million active devices. So somewhere in one of the households on this panel as well, your TV experience is being powered by Cinemedia software. And one of the reasons why I'm here as director of data is I run Cinemedia's data strategy, and I spearhead one of our key products, Clarissa. And so with all of the customers globally that we've had, I just wanted to give a preview of what we have learned during the pandemic using Clarissa Insights. This is the kind of volume of data that Clarissa processes, and this is only every month. 1.5 billion video sessions. And what we've seen is with the work from home, TV viewing has really gone up. People spend between 6 to 9 hours every day in front of the TV. Could be kids who are stuck at home, not being able to go to school. It could be people taking a break from work, but TV viewing has definitely gone up. And it hasn't always been VOD. Where there is linear, it's always gone back to linear. And key headline content for linear, the news, it's become a chart topper, which no one ever expected. The Olympics and the Euro 2020 last year, the moment production of dramas resumed, return to drama was very rapid. People missed watching that live linear drama as they are accustomed to doing it. And so therefore, linear still remains king. What we've also seen is that special content shifts audience behavior. A lot of our customers around the world created these temporary Olympics channels just to focus on the Olympics itself. And these saw instant popularity. And it meant that all of the other content, the regular primetime content, just shifted down. So if you really have a blockbuster series, don't launch it during the Olympics or a big sporting event, because it's very hard to get customers away from that. What we also saw as the news, have already spoken about this. And in addition to the pandemic, there have been quite a few conflicts. We are in the midst of one now, and that's again seen those spikes in behavior. What we are also seeing is channels have a value to customers, and it's not measured just by the number of minutes they spend on it, but also how frequently they return to it and how recently they return to it. So in some ways, packaging content in channels is still something that continues. And what I think the summary of that slide is, while everything changes, some things still stay the same. A lot changes, but a lot is also still the same. So in summary, these were the things we found out, that the content remained the king. It was a key way for everyone to get out of pandemic boredom. Content snacking became quite prevalent. So all of the OTT devices, the iPads, the tablets, the smaller screen devices ended up getting used for short form content. But the long form content, sports, movies, all of that remained on the set-top box. That still became the place where long form content tended to be watched. And even those younger audiences who we always consider disengaged and easily distracted, the right packaging of long form content, and they will also enjoy it and give you 1-2 hours of engaged viewing. So these are the pandemic insights. The next time we have this, we're all coming out of lockdown pandemic, hopefully permanently. There might be something else that we'll bring up if we run this again. And that is it from me and Cinemedia. Hopefully that was a good start. Anil, back to you.
Thank you, Amrita. I just wanted to ask you a question based on what you just showed us. Even in India, was living room the centerpiece of consumption, or was it still the handphone?
It was the living room, only because I suppose it also depends on the regions in India. Where you have houses where there's a TV in the living room and people can work elsewhere, then maybe the living room could be used. But if you had a family, and I think it's the same even in the UK, if your office was the living room plus dining room, then it meant that the TV couldn't be used as much. You had to go into the room and use the smaller screens. But fundamentally, I think the preference is the living room has the biggest screen in the house. And if you're watching content, you want to try and watch it on that big screen as much as possible. It's only the private personal content or the short form content that still continued on those smaller devices.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. Let's move on to the panel then. Guys, your insights on this, on what she's just presented, before we go on to the topic of discussion about how we're using data, etc. So your feedback on what she's just presented. Who wants to begin, Divya?
Yeah, I mean, I think these insights, especially like the fact that we spoke that in the living room, because we all live through it, right? So my family and I would typically sit in the living room, with our individual laptops or devices and look through a piece of content together on the set. So you were multitasking at that point of time, right? So I think there are pretty good insights out over there. And I think more or less now sort of word is saying that, we are going to go back to normal and live with this. So I think there will be slight changes in that, because we're again back to, using our individual devices to watch content, etc. We still, but as a family, there is a pattern which is now established that we do try and catch up some content together every night, once we sort of assemble at home, me, my daughter and my husband. There will be slight deviations, I believe, from pre-pandemic era as we settle into new habits that we create. I think, yeah, pretty relevant insights. Thanks, Amrita.
Yeah, Viraji?
Well, I mean, a couple of interesting things that one is looked at. Obviously, everyone's aware that the pandemic sort of drove a very significant upside of consumption on the OTT space, right? So there was a lot that went into the small screen, at least in India. And then now you can see that there is a consumption going back to the large screen. And I think those are screens in nature, right? I think one needs to also look at what content we're talking about, because there was a drop in consumption of linear content and video on demand went up, right? It's just that the screens have shifted. But a lot of video on demand content is something that is driving a lot of consumption now. Obviously, connected TV is the next big story around the world. There's still a long way for India to go there. But I think that's where one is going to be able to see a lot of consumption, right? Obviously, the experience, like Amrita said, there's nothing like large screen. Now, whether you're watching it with a family on linear TV or you're watching it independently, obviously this, you can see the numbers of smart TV sales going up, etc. But I think the one thing that we've noticed is, at least over the pandemic, it benefited the OTT ecosystem quite significantly.
All right, Abiru, your feedback on the insights? Abiru, are you there? Unmute yourself if you... Abiru, can you unmute yourself? Abiru? Hola.
Hey, Anil. Hey, Anil. I'm sorry, I'm facing some network issues here.
Okay.
But if I'm clear now, am I audible now?
You're audible. You're definitely audible.
Okay. So yeah, I think some great insights what Amrita presented. I think a lot has changed since pandemic hit. I think what she spoke about is the we me to a we kind of a culture, where we did see a pattern shifting there, where discovering content as a family, as a unit, and in a country where a bulk of our households are single TV households, we saw the role of video on demand and handset and the consumption pattern also changing with the pandemic hitting. So we have seen some clear pattern shifts in terms of the content consumption and the screen. And it can vary even between a time of the day of the week. So there were a lot of micro trends that emerged from this entire.
Yeah, so what she said is a lot more late night viewing is coming in right now.
Yeah. Right. And yeah, so besides the late night viewing, also the fact that the second screen, the handset seems to have become almost like a second screen of the household, where if the entire family is watching a certain serial or a TV show, we see the pattern even in terms of mirroring in terms of the handheld phone. So some micro trends are emerging, but definitely the big trend has been the me to we culture that has come about.
Fabulous. That's a great reaffirmation of what she said. Now, we've had this increase in consumption, 8 hours, which is between 5 and 7 and 8 hours, which is what she said now, where what Cinemedia's data showed us. And there are so many screens people are watching on. There's notepads, there's laptops, there's TV screens, there's handphones. So that's a whole lot of data. So how are you using that to enhance consumer experience? How are you using that to enhance revenue for yourselves? How are you using it to enhance the experience even for your partners who are coming on board in terms of the advertising partners? Who wants to take this up? Does Viraj wants to take it up, or does Divya want to take it up, or Biru? Whoever wants to take this up, take it up.
Viraj, you want to answer this first? You unmute yourself.
Why don't you start and I'll add to what you said.
Okay. So, like you rightly said, connected devices selling more. So, whether it's laptop, whether it's television, and normally people say connected devices are television, right? Now, while the sale for that, that is increasing in the country, and we are seeing that in the percentage, how we're utilizing it, obviously, is the key to how we adapt to this changing footprint of the audience, right? So, the journey, I feel, particularly needs to start from the kind of content you create. So, till now, digital, and I've been saying this, that content is going to be always platform agnostic. You have to be platform agnostic, but keeping in mind that India still is a mobile driven country, we've been creating a lot of content which is tailored to specific needs, and people have been consuming it individually. But that's a stance now we've taken internally, where we are saying that in the environment of these changing consumer habits, let's look at the fact that how we start first by structuring our content pipeline and putting out content which is going to be relevant to the family audience and being consumed together. That's part one. Part two comes the part that we are now in the spirit of partnerships at alt, at least. We are doing lots of ISP partnerships. So there's a very, very clear reach out which is happening to the ISP community and the telecom community in terms of forming alliances and partnerships and seeing how we can monetize this family-based viewing better and better. If you're aware, we had started our journey with telecom partnerships, then we broke that in between, we took a detour, we went into the co-prod partnerships, and now while we still nurture those co-prod partnerships, we are again getting back to these ISP and telco partnerships to answer your question on the revenue. Of course, if you're aware that...
But I'm talking about the use of data, because you've got so many, you've got telco partners, you've got ISP partners, you've got different devices being used by consumer. You must be an explosion of data.
Correct. So that is another thing that we are now in the work of structuring at the back end, because data you just can't idly capture if your tech stack is not right? So with the advent of all these partnerships, what's also becoming apparent for us is that our tech needs to hold up, our tech stack needs to hold up all the data which is coming in, and that data needs to be extracted by my analytics team at a certain speed. Because if your data is a flat table, right, your analytics team has a harrowing time extracting that data in a particular timeline. So we are reworking our entire tech stack at the back as we speak right now. And I'm a party to that. So I understand that how, we are now putting it in a stairwell structure. We're creating a stepwise format, and we are re-ingesting stuff as we build it along. That's the data usage, right? Of course, this data is now on the back of Lockup, which is the show that we've launched with our friend over here, Mr. Viraj.
So congratulations, 100 million views. 100 million? What?
100 million views in less than 20 days. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, congratulations. Where's the champagne?
Thank you. Once you come
Where's
back,
the champagne?
please carry the bottle, and me and Viraj will open it together.
Thank you.
So what we've also done at Alt is we've launched the award part of the business on the back of it, right? So that is another monetization stream that we're opening up. So to answer your question, data being structured, revenue monetization being done now through AWOD, being done, of course, continue to be done through SWOD. Third data and revenue monetization we're doing through ISP and telco partnerships. And now we're also, thanks to the award and thanks to the millions of views that we're getting after opening up award, we're also getting approached by various brands to advertise, to integrate on the show. So these are 3-4 ways in which we are obviously analyzing and throwing data with the partners as much as we can to also incite and invoke interest into our platform. So those are the basic fundamental strategies that we are working on right now. Is the future going to get more ideas? Yes, of course we will, because we are never close to ideas. But these are the 4-5 fundamental things that we are working on at the moment.
Thank you for that. And tech stack is crucial. I'm sure Viraj will also agree on that. But let's hear from Viraj in terms of how are you using the data on the platform?
So, data is obviously the center of business today, right? I mean, you understand your user, you're able to progress your business. And when it comes to MX, we've used it across, so many silos of work. Just to start with, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, MX Player was just a world-class media player, which was a utility app. And by understanding our consumers, which at that point were 100 million users, we were able to evolve that business into a super entertainment app, which now offers OTT video streaming, audio streaming, gaming, and short video in a single platform. And all that was driven by data, understanding your consumer, their habits, their preferences, and so on and so forth, which obviously led to business opportunities. So that's one side of it. The other is obviously something that I think, both Divya's platform and our platform do very significantly is our content strategy revolves around data, right? Again, what is it that they're willing to watch, what time they're willing to watch, how much time you're willing to watch, all of that information has actually led to our entire canvas and library of content strategy, which is quite diverse, because time spent of an 18 to 24 hour in a metro in a weekend versus weekday is very different from the same age, gender in a non-metro, and therefore that allowed us to understand that today we've launched this our first sort of long format soap drama called Rohaniyat, based on the fact that while everyone was interested in binge watching on OTT, they also were missing that appointment viewing, long form, 40 episode, 30-minute, which you see on television, GSC linear channel. It's just that that content wasn't available for an 18 to 34-year-old, and we were able to do that, all based on data. And then eventually, the two big things which drive monetization, we are an AVOD platform. It's extremely important for us to understand our audience so that we can take it out to market and get the right brands to be able to advertise to their relevant audience, which obviously leads to higher efficiencies for my advertiser, but also better viewing for my consumer. And what it then eventually led to is something new, which is, in the nascent stages, our feature-based subscription model, which we just launched recently, also based on data that certain people are willing to pay a certain amount just to be able to see less number of ads or to be able to get access to certain type of content 25, 30 days in advance. So our entire business and business opportunity, our growth is based on data.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Now, Abhirup, you're one of the older platforms in the business, which has transformed in its shape, from the time when Subhashji and started to conceive of a streaming service. That was probably a decade or more than a decade ago. So, over the years, what have you been using data for primarily? Abhirup?
So,
yeah,
I'm here. So, I mean, let me try and kind of, I'm sorry I missed out on the earlier part of the session. There was some data connectivity issues, but let me kind of reiterate if the points have been covered already, but let me reiterate the points that I have to talk about. See, for us, data in terms of certain buckets, I'm going to club it. One is the whole customer acquisition piece, how we are leveraging data, whether it's a person who is coming to watch a certain trailer that we launched, how do we get that person and target that person to, say, consume, say, a show? How do we move them across the, increase the watch time? How do we convert and acquire customers who are coming onto our web and web to app platforms? So that's something that we are looking to do. We are looking at using, we leverage several tools in terms of specific set of cohorts which are watching episodic previews. and getting them to show the overall, that come and watch the entire episode for free on Z5. So we are leveraging in terms of acquisition using data, and I'll talk about the pain points also in a bit. But
later, we come to the pain points later. Right now, we're asking.
Okay, sure.
We're discussing on how are you using data.
Sure. So the customer acquisition in terms of basis, what they've seen is one. Basis historical consumption pattern on the platform is something that we leverage, whether it's using CLM or reactivation of cohorts, re-engagement of cohorts. People who are likely to churn, we kind of target them and use data to see what they have seen and likely cohorts and what has driven higher CTRs, so that we don't lose this consumer base. People whose subscription is likely to lapse is something that we use data quite extensively for. So that's the entire thing is about driving the funnel in terms of the consumer and the user base. In terms of making sure that the engagement is higher and they are sticking onto the platform, that's where the entire platform search query level and in leveraging data to showcase the right content to the consumer becomes very, very important. And not just the right content as per the whatever they have seen, but also what kind of devices and what kind of content that they typically end up watching. For example, a person might be traveling to work and might tune in Z5 where we have live news channels playing. So how do we ensure that we are able to nudge that person to turn on news while the person is driving, and to a late night when or a weekend when the consumption of movies and of certain non-fiction reality shows increases. And finally, obviously, the entire recommendation engine. So basis the actors, basis the genres. So to give an example, how a movie the two movies might look very similar if you were to kind of look at the kind of actors or the kind of themes that they play. But one movie might be a fantastic and might have a watch time of around 60 minutes, while another movie might have a watch time of 15 minutes. So what are those points where the person drops off? Is it something that on 15th minute they have seen, which is not, and they're seeing it on the large screen, which is not comfortable for the entire family to watch? So to kind of
I think we've lost him. So until he comes back, I'm going to move over to Amrita. Amrita, what have you seen across the world? What are people using data for? What are the platforms using data for?
There's actually been a nice set of answers from the panelists as well. So, Divya, you made a point about platform agnostic content. And I think one of the challenges that we've seen around the world is how can we get to platform agnostic data? Because every platform has a different way of reporting it. You get native embedded Android sends data a certain way, iOS sends data a certain way. How do you ensure that you are reconciling all of that data to talk about the same thing? Because everyone wants to be platform agnostic because people are watching content on all of those different screens. But you want that the data to inform your decisions are the same. Because, like Virajit said, you are looking at understanding what type of content are people watching long form. Do they want to keep the linear appointment to view? In order to even understand those behaviors, normalizing data is quite important. I spoke to a European telco last month, a prominent European telco, and they said, well, we use 4 different data analytics apps. The numbers don't match, but we found our own little way to make sure that the numbers are conveniently similar for us to just make business decisions. And that may be good when you're just starting out in this data world, but we've now reached a place where everyone's using data to underpin big decisions on advertising and monetization. You really need to ensure that the data is the right quality, because otherwise you end up with a shifting base where the numbers look very different from one month to the other. And I think that has been a challenge, and that has also meant that it has changed how customers want to use data. Like the example of some people prefer the linear appointment to view. So in the UK, the BBC does Killing Eve as a box set the first weekend after it's gone live, because people like to binge watch on that. line of duty, they've kept linear on that appointment to view schedule, because that is how people prefer engaging with it. And it's knowing that although they're both crime dramas from the same content provider, they're still different in how their content is getting consumed. And using the previous season's data to inform the next season becomes quite important. And Agru was talking about what is it about specific minutes in the plot line where people disengage. Learning, informing, and ensuring that you're building content for higher consumption is quite important. Because now it is the case that there are 3,000 different shows you can watch. If you really want them to watch the show that you want them to watch, make sure it's compelling enough to make them keep returning to it. And I think data is a really powerful tool to use there.
Yeah, data is the oil, actually. Without the oil, you're done. You're actually, you can have the pipe, but there's no oil. You can have an engine, but no oil.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Abhirup, are you back, or you want to continue?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry, apologies for that. So I was just talking about, the fact that how do we leverage the right content and take corrective actions in terms of a certain content where we see a dropout rate. How do we get the recommendation engine going? And whether it's so a lot of consumers, and unlike any other e-commerce industries and all, a lot of consumption and user base is generated via organic mediums. So they might have seen something on television about Z5, and they might land on the platform. So how do we get this guest user who has no past history of their consumption pattern and all? How do we get them to show them the right pattern basis the past guest user history is something that we are working on, and it's something I'm sure that all the OTT platforms are working towards.
But this is we've been focusing more on audience, but there's data being drawn up on operations, there's marketing data, there's technology operations, there's a tech data where the CTO has to make sure that he's serving very, very effectively, and there is no waiting happening for the consumer. We don't have that rotating thing which is coming up. So there's tons of data. And like she said, there are many, many data apps you're using, and analytic apps. How is that working out for you all? And what are your pain points that you are witnessing? So Abhirup, I want you to speak now that you're connected, speak, so I don't have to wait for you again.
Right. So in terms of, the pain points, the biggest pain point is that the biggest chunk of a user base are the guest users, right? And because of the fact that we are unable to gather any, there's no information about this person, right? They're coming totally anonymously, and they are consuming a certain content, or they might just choose to bounce out of watching a certain trailer, and they might be generated via multiple platforms. So there is no way to do that interconnection. So whether a person comes across web, app, whether on a CD, if the person is on a guest user, we cannot tell that this person is the same person who has seen, the content across the various screens. So that cohesive cohesive view of the user is missing. And secondly, when I was talking about the personalization at a guest level, at a user level, is also something which we are unable to is a huge pain point that we see. As far as marketing is concerned, because this we don't know a lot of the user base. There's the guest users. They might be targeted via multiple channels, right? They might be targeted by Google, Facebook, CLM, SMS, emailers, WhatsApp, whatever medium we might choose. But we might be wasting marketing dollars reaching out to the same guest user via multiple channels. In terms of the content discovery, on platform, and that is something between a new release that we want to launch versus a cash cow, which is like a consistent performer on the platform. How do you juggle the two? So that's something that is a pain point for us, and I'm sure it's something that all already platforms would be facing this issue. And the final thing from a pain point perspective is from the ad revenue perspective, right? So the clients want a certain kind of audience for their campaigns, a certain cohorts. So if they want to target a woman sitting in Punjab who falls between the age of 18 to 25. So how do you ensure that the ad is served to the right cohort? Because the entire data enrichment and the on-target reach, where we say that that the quality of data assess gathering is so robust that we are able to serve the right set of ads to the base. So that is again something that we are working towards, and I mean data is the solution to kind of alleviate this pain point for us.
Great. Viraj, from your perspective, the tech side, how is that, the data which is arising out of your operations and the tech side, and also the other points that Abhirup mentioned. Can you throw further insights into that?
See, I think it's two very simple things that everyone has discussed. One is obviously data needs to be platform agnostic, simply because you want to be able to use it across, at least for the purpose of advertising. You want the ability for a brand to be able to have a single view across wherever he's advertising on the audiences that we have. We don't have a central single data agency. There are multiple third-party agencies that have their own sort of metrics of data accuracy, right? And sources of data, which may or may not always match first-party data that someone like a Divya's platform or MX Player would have. And therefore that leads to obviously a lot of issues when you're trying to drive business conversations from that perspective. So I think that while data is being collected, we still need to be able to find a way to be able to bring that all into a single pool of platform that's visible for everyone to see and to then evaluate on. And I think that's for the perspective of advertising, I think that's the single most important point right now.
Okay, Divya, your pain points.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of pain points, I think one of the things that we constantly struggle with is, for example, to understand why has this consumer dropped off. Now that's something that we are trying to fine tune the data. So consumers will come in many formats, right? They will come across web, they will come across mobile web, they'll come across desktop and app. Of course, there's going to be a journey over there, whether it's a AWOD or a SWOD consumer, and all those are doable, mappable, etc., etc. The biggest pain point happens, why did this consumer drop off? Especially when you're trying to use the data for cross-selling, for upselling, etc., etc. That is when, for example, the biggest pain point I have is when a consumer drops off at the subscription page, right? Or a consumer's dropped off in the middle of sampling the first episode. Now, these are two pain points that I'm constantly trying to address internally, because at the end of the day, they lead to the business sustainability. See, engagement is, for us at least, as a SWOT platform, and any SWOT side of the business, engagement is as good as what converts into a consumer buying the piece. Having said that, now that we've launched a AWOD part of the business as well, for us, the pain point are also obviously going to be deeper engagement, and which is why I pointed out the fact that for me, there are two pain points that I constantly need to answer every single day of my life. Why did he fall off the subscription cart, and why did he fall off the first episode, and how do I get him back? So those two pain points are what we are typically every day fine-tuning at the back end, figuring out an answer to. And of course,
what about it?
Connected devices, getting data from there is also a little bit of a pain point in terms of aligning the metric with the rest of the platforms.
Okay. What about your, there could be drop-offs because of tech problems. There could be drop-offs because of, aren't you monitoring that side as well as the tech data?
Correct, 100%. So
how are you dovetailing all of that into something that you can understand?
Yes, so you rightly pointed out. So for example, the drop-off could be due to the fact that there was a buffering. The drop-off could be the fact that his SMS code didn't come on time while subscribing. The drop-off could be that the episode, sort of just stopped appearing, or it got pixelated. So these are also multiple things that we are working with the tech team to draw at the back end, going them as a feedback. Not only do we rely on the backend data, but we also look at something called crowdsourcing. So when I say crowdsourcing, it's actually the crowd feedback. So every week We have a tool that we basically use to look at the social media and the digital noise around the brand and what are people talking about as a problem. Now, these could be the issues that surface on social media handles, or these could be the surface that largely get spoken about as for our brand on the digital media. So that's also a cloud that we refer to dovetail into these issues and sort of rectify as and when we evolve and get along.
How do you map all of these against each other? What you're getting on the app, what you're getting in digital? I mean, you're making it your life even more complicated.
No, but life is complicated, right? Nobody said data is going to be easy. So there are metrics, right? And I'm not going to discuss that openly because it's something we've developed internally, but there are metrics that we go against. And these are minimum benchmarks where we say, okay, if this is going above this, then this is a danger sign and I need to look at it. I do dovetail it and we put it into the buckets. We say, this is the content bucket, this is the tech bucket. And this is probably, at times you also have marketing issues, right? Somebody didn't like the trailer and dropped off. Now that's a genuine marketing issue. It's not even a content issue because the packaging assets belong to marketing. So these are going to be various buckets which get addressed every day. For us, tech and sub-related are on priority because content and marketing issues take that much time to turn around, dovetail into, map into, and turn around. However, for us, the tech and the subscription issues are always on priority and have to be addressed, dovetailed, and answered, hopefully in a span of 4 to 5 hours. That's the kind of TAT we work with.
And that's on a daily basis?
That's on a daily basis. You have to.
Wow.
There's no choice.
Fantastic. How large is the team?
Very small. In fact, I think it's very, very well known in the industry that all teams are always the smallest. So in tech, currently we have about 20 people, 25 people based out of Bombay. We have very, very capable tech partners who help us. So whether it's an Extreme or it's a Conviva or it's Mobiotics, these are the partners that make our life easier day on day and are available and working as hard as we are.
Viraj, similar question to you, the team size?
To be honest, again, we're actually very small on tech. We're big on product.
And data analytics, I'm talking about. Tech, data analytics.
So data analytics, we've got a business intelligence team that is central and supports all silos of business. I think we still have a very small team, which is 5 or 7, but I think we've taken some big decisions on bringing in some big people this year to be a part of the team. So you're going to see a much larger team with varied experiences coming in and joining MX in the business intelligence department.
And which are the partners you're relying on to help you with the data? Like she said, Extreme.
I wouldn't know too many names, unfortunately, but happy to share offline. I don't have it top of mind, unfortunately.
Abiru?
Yeah. So.
Abiru. Yeah.
Right. So in terms of the tech, the analytics team, we have a fairly robust data sciences team, and we are looking at, we are reaching out to various partners to help us understand. So we have partners like Xroad Media, or Applicaster, Minutely. I mean, there are several partners that we work with. So we kind of, like what I think Divya was mentioning, is that how do we get a common consumer look of, or was it Virajit? I don't know.
It was Viraj.
It was Viraj. Okay. So how do we get that common consumer view of this person is something that the data sciences team is working on. And the tech team is obviously, we are building on scaling up our tech team as the,
So how large is the data sciences team and the tech? I mean, you're looking at what, 10 people, 6 people, 5 people, 4 people? Because I think that gets totally under-reflected in the kind of contribution it can make towards your success.
I wouldn't know the answer to that, but I know that it's a fairly robust team, and because I engage with the head of the data sciences, so I'm sure he has a fairly significant number of people working under him.
All right.
So I wouldn't know the answer to that.
Yeah, Amrita, you heard these gentlemen and the lady. Over to you now.
So there actually have been a lot of interesting points, and I'm going to pick up on Divya's points first, which is around that real pain point of understanding churn. One of the things that we've noticed is because there are so many services now, it's becoming quite easy for people to drop in and drop out. The pandemic led to them subscribing to every possible service because they just needed to keep sane. And now that subscription fatigue has reached, people are trying to see, am I really using this service? Do I need to stay there? What we are finding is churn isn't always immediate. There are a few micro stressors in the journeys that have happened for the week, the month, the months before that all lead to the factor, which is that churn predictability. It sometimes is the case, it's the last straw on the camel's back, that one last error suddenly turns them off, but that's not the only reason they're going off. There have been historical things. So one of the things we are doing in building out both a combination of a churn and an engagement indicator, churn and engagement, two sides, they're countering forces, is we start to look at for every single household, what have been the challenges and experience. We look at errors, buffering errors, player errors, all of that. We also look at how long are they spending on the UI before they find the content. Is content discovery easy or difficult? Is it easy for different times of day for different types of content? If your kids can't find the content they want to watch, they'll be very voluble about it. And then if you have to come in and help them find it, that starts to become a micro stressor. What you then also start to look at is the right content there? Are people spending all of that time searching and not finding what they're searching for? So there are all of these different facets that go into churn prediction and our engagement that will ultimately help Divya answer that question. Why did that person drop off? Why are they not subscribing? There is a history. It's not a year. People don't have memories for that long, but it usually is the last month and the month maybe before it, which has the keys to answering your problem. And we're starting to build that now. We're having similar discussions with other customers, and it's always going down the same path. So that is one way that we are helping our customers understand the factors influencing churn, and it differs again by audiences. Different age groups have different levels of tolerance to these things as well. And to the point about everybody having small teams, the reason these teams tend to be small and they do rely on partners is because, and that's one of the ways that Cinemedia's Clarissa also works, is we want to help all of their internal BI teams by giving them an insight-ready data set. We do all of the analysis, the data science, and we ensure that your BI teams are focused on the thing that they need to do for you. Answer the questions that you have that will be different for every one of our customers, but give you that perfect data set. Viewing sessions, engagement prediction, engagement likelihood, journeys, everything at a household level view. So then when something goes wrong or someone isn't renewing, you just pull up their details, you have an entire history. You know exactly where things went wrong that you can then take and use. So that is how we are helping, hopefully all of them understand their problems better. And I've just noticed that you need to leave, Divya, so I'll let you say your goodbye to everyone as well.
Not much, but happy to have your point of view. Sorry, Anil, you were saying something.
Yeah, express yourself because you said you have another meeting, and then we'll continue with Viraj and Abiru.
Yeah.
You're here for another 10 minutes.
Sure. Do you have a particular question you want me to answer?
No, you respond to what Amrita was saying. If you'd like to respond, if you agree with her, fine.
No, I agree with her. In fact, what she really said. So every marketer on every digital app, and I've had these conversations with multiple founders of the digital apps whose pain point is because, see, and I strongly believe in this, I've been vocalizing this for years, that the sustainable business is where a consumer is willing to pay for you. AWOD can be an added layer, but the sustainable business will come out of consumer wallet share. In that scenario, the churn piece becomes extremely important, especially for a smaller platform like us, which is extremely ROI driven, right? You're mapping every content, tech, marketing cost against what you're earning through revenue, and those revenue can come through multiple sources. So having this helping hand of somebody being able to, map out for us as to where the churn is exactly coming from and what needs to be rectified, obviously adds a lot of value.
Yeah, but there's still a trust deficit in the area of advertising between the agency and the platform. what is the best time that you can run a promotional campaign? Not only for your own internal assets, but even for partners. Can you get that granularity coming in place? A lot of agencies I speak to, a lot of brands I speak to is that, they're being dished out a lot of drivel and they're having to accept whatever drivel you're dishing out.
So I really wouldn't be able to answer that at this point of time. Like I said, we've just launched AWard. It's been about 15, 20 days. We are onboarding a lot of programmatic partners as we speak, right? I haven't really seen any, like you said, dished out a lot of drivel happening on my platform. Yes, of course, as a platform, I strongly feel that you should have the right to be able to say no to a campaign, which most of these programmatic partners and all the agencies will give you the right. Now, that's a platform call to take that at what CPM and what kind of product am I willing to advertise, right? So, for example, I have done this in the past, and I'm not going to name the competing platforms, but where I have run ads of my own, right? And those platforms have taken a stance and said, listen, if they are going to run competing ads on my platform, I need to be paid a premium for it. Otherwise, I'm willing to let go of the campaign. So I think it's an individual platform ownership to take rather than having a blanket statement to make on this, honestly, Andrew.
No, I'm telling you what advertisers tell me and what agencies have told me. We're going ahead based on gut feel and trust. Let's ask Abhirup, since he's been in, and MX, and Viraj, who's been in this game longer. There's that trust deficit still, right?
I think it's also
the trust deficit is reducing now.
Yeah, I think it's all to do with dialogues and having these kind of conversations where we, engage with the planners and the media agencies more extensively, showcase the kind of cohorts that's there on the platform. It's about building trust, right? And showcasing what the campaign can really do for their brands and their clients. I think we've come a long way, and there is. It's again, we are also developing newer solutions to kind of give better solution to our clients on the platform, and that's an ongoing process, right? But I think the biggest mover is in terms of showcasing what the platform can offer to the planners, because it's about. TV has been there for the longest time, and a lot of agencies and planners understand TV really well. And it's about the same kind of showcasing the efficacy of digital. And there were also showcase what digital can do, which a television probably cannot do or can do in conjunction with TV, right? So it's all to do with dialogues, is what I feel.
And it's not to do with the tools that you have, which could be more transparent, third party, first party, etc. It's not got to do
the
with
tools
all that.
are there. The tools are all
even
there.
Even then they say you slice and dice it the way you want, and which they don't, at times they don't trust you.
Yeah, that's where, that's what I'm saying. It's the idea is to have an open conversation, showcase a certain campaign, what it can do for a brand, have, to have open conversation and dialogues and basically build more transparency across the value chain. I think that really is the key.
Well said, well dodged, but thank you. Virajji.
See, for me, I think data comes in at the second stage when there is a willingness to advertise on a certain platform. I think it starts with relationship, perception, and bandwidth. And relationship opens doors. Perception will shut doors before you can even start a dialogue. Bandwidth, because today there's just so much that people have on their table as an offering that they used to go. They're more than happy to go with old success, right? So today, if they found success in a platform or a service that has done well on their campaigns, why should we try something new? Whether the data that brings, gives you an opportunity to sort of, drive further efficiencies on your platform. Because for a media buyer or a planner, then it's also about going and convincing the client and starting that entire wheel again. So for me, I think if all of this is checkboxed, then data comes in, and then there's receptiveness of data and the opportunity for you to convert. But I think that there's ideally it should be the other way around. Data should be on top, which can then be sort of cushioned by relationship, bandwidth, and perception. Because it's the same thing, right? Perception today. I may have watched a certain piece of content and have perceived that to be in a certain bucket, whereas it may or may not be when you watch that same piece of content, or your perception of a certain platform, or your perception of a certain audience, or the platform and its audience. So unfortunately, I think all of that still drive decision making. It would be great to have data on top and everything else sort of cushioning it.
Okay, I've got questions here. Coming from the audience. Early in the pandemic, OTT content providers and MNOs agreed to reduce quality of OTT or to reduce congestion and maximize reach and stability. Has the capacity issue been addressed with more infrastructure, and are those content bitrate curbs now history, or do they still remain? I mean, this is not on the data side, but it's more about customer experience and being able to handle the traffic that they were getting and the kind of bandwidth that was available to consumers. So have those constraints been removed, or they're still there?
So if I look at MX, obviously we're a mobile first, mobile only platform, and we saw a huge surge in consumption as a user base as well as watch time. I think as a tech first business, what we were able to do, which sort of benefited consumers, was to be able to compress our content and still give very high quality content viewership that actually led to a downsize of data usage. And that worked extremely well for us, simply because today, if I look at where the growth of content consumption is, which is mid-market and bottom of the pyramid, data is extremely important in terms of consumption, right? And the cost of data consumption. So we were actually able to compress, and we were the first people to be able to do that, to compress our content and still offer the same quality at a lower usage of data. So that was the one thing that we did.
Okay, Divya and Abhirup, and then finally we'll have Amrita come in and give her viewpoints on what's been discussed today, and also about the last question I put up.
On data, of course, during the OTT time period, there was also a request from the relevant authorities to look at the fact that, there's going to be an immense traffic, and how is it that you guys are going to best utilize the services without putting pressure on the, of course, the telecom bandwidth and the other bandwidth, etc. So we've continued doing that optimization at that point of time also as a mobile first economy of this country, and we being alt and mobile first at that point of time. And we still are, right? We've continued optimization via auto serving mode. So wherever that there is a certain kind of bandwidth, we have tried to optimize that our content plays best in that particular optimized bandwidth available. We are constantly working with our player team across Poland, etc., to see whatever best iterations that we can do. It's very, very critical, of course, because then with a certain amount of CDN cost and footprint, you're able to serve your multiple customers and more customers better, of course, because that also helps us reduce the load and the cost at the back end and the offering. So yes, that optimization is an ongoing process. We continue working on it.
Abhirup?
Very similar in terms of what's been said. So okay. It's a like what the mentioned, continuous process in terms of optimizing our user experience. See, we keep our user experience at core of everything that we do. So anything that might disrupt that experience, we kind of we keep that as a North Star.
Okay, who's the North Star you look up to as each of y'all, in terms of what you would like to achieve in business intelligence and data? Which of the players internationally, or do you all have your own internal benchmarks? Who do you all look up to globally that when I grow up, I want to be that, in terms of understanding the consumer?
Let me go first. I think we have a very clear, what we are doing is we're laying down the roadmap with what we want to be, broken down into 6, 12, 24 months down the line. So we have our own internal benchmarks and where we want to go. So.
Okay. Divya?
So I would say that it need not necessarily be entertainment. But yes, I look at the fact that Amazon has done some great job in terms of, doing cross-sell, upsell, and, because I'm a great Amazon e-com user. And the way that they sort of, take that data, combine and pull in the customer through these platforms, through the intelligent notifications, through the way their recommendations and suggestions pop up, I think that's someone I really idolize. And, I think there's a lot of learning that one can take from there. I think they've made e-commerce one of the most convenient experiences for a user, and have also upsold a lot of things to me also as a person. And I talk to multiple people, and they talk about the same. So I would say that's something that I would like to take a lot of inspiration from. And on that note, guys, I would like to say adieu to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for a great panel.
Thank you very much. Viraj, thank you.
I think, there'll always be global benchmarks and, North Stars that you sort of peg across everything. But I think we work very, very hard to listen to our consumer and try and sort of over-deliver on their expectation. And that's an ongoing process. I think in every single aspect, if we didn't understand the importance of data usage and that extra cost of 10 rupees per week for someone in a tier 2 town, we would never have thought of the importance of using tech to be able to compress. So, I mean, there are multiple examples internally that, again, sort of drive the fact that listening to your consumer, understanding that data, seeing how you can sort of mix that into a bowl and actually figure out a solution for them is I think, the best metric that you can work on today.
Okay, Amrita?
So I think there are quite a few interesting points made, and I'm going to start with the last because it's easy to go from there. And we always knew this in marketing, the customer's always right. But what we are starting to see is customers' subjective data, going into the TRP panels where they tell you what they think about things, is quite different from the objective data that we get from what they're actually doing. And I've seen this where we ran a panel with subscribers in the UK whose data we also had, and we were able to see what people think about what they watch versus what they're actually doing can sometimes have a difference. And so, yes, the customer is always right, but more importantly, I think the customer's data is always right. So, if you had to choose between the subjective and objective, there are nuggets in the subjective, but the objective data should be the thing that really drives the decision. And it looks like everyone's on the same part there. And the other, I think you used a very interesting word, trust, Anil. How do you ensure that you created trust with using data as a currency? A lot of the problems we are seeing in the Western markets is we have broadcasters and operators telling advertisers, this is how our usage is. And it kind of is like marking your own homework, because you can obviously say that you've got fantastic audience reach and you want them to try and use new currencies. But the reason why those existing panel currencies exist is because they are independent. They are not you marking your own homework. There's actually a teacher marking your homework, which makes a difference. And what we are seeing with Cinemedia is we are starting to see ourselves as that trusted third party. We can help ensure that we go into a market. We also have a targeted advertising solution to help AVOD vendors. How can we ensure that we are using our data to help ensure that there's market parity and alignment, so the numbers of Z5 and MX Player and all are all the same because they are measured as per the same metric, and it's an independent third party doing it, which can go through scrutiny and everything else, and it starts to create that alternate currency. So that is what I hope will be the future. Use more data, but maybe use it from an independent third party.
Fabulous, and that's where you step in. Are you effective in terms of pricing for the Indian market?
Yes, we are. We work very keenly to ensure that we've got the right pricing for that market. And I'm going to test it out, hopefully with the panelists after this course.
So are you open to that, guys? Viraj and Abhiru?
Absolutely, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So great. I mean, Viraj has to log off. Any last words from any of y'all on this subject before we wrap up? Viraj, or you've said it all?
No, I think it was thank you so much for the opportunity. It was such a great and insightful session, and I hope that we were able to add value to everyone who came to listen and watch.
I'm hoping we added value to you in terms of listening to each other,
yes,
and also the way we drove the conversation and Amrita's insights. from the world, and as well as from the product, promises that she's making through Clarissa and through other products that Cinemedia has. Abiru, any last words?
Yeah, this is the fact that, it's good to hear from colleagues across other brands to get their perspective insights. It was great to engage with you and Viraj and Divya and Amrita. So thank you for this great session. Look forward to more.
Thank you very much, Amrita. Thank you. It's been a pleasure listening to you, and it's been a pleasure listening to you, Abiru, to Viraj, and even to Divya. Thank you, and to all the listeners and the viewers, a very good afternoon to you all, and thank you for listening in, and thank you for tuning in and watching us. Thank you, and thank you to Cinemedia for partnering with us. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good.
Bye. See you.